Welcome to another video. In this video, we are going to solve generate parenthesis problem from the Leetcode. In this problem, they will give a number n, and we need to generate strings which contains these n pairs of parentheses. So that is the requirement. And as you can see here in the first example, given number is n, given n is 3, and we have all these strings which satisfy the condition. If you consider this first string in this answer array or list, and here you can see this number of brackets. There are three opening brackets and there are three closing brackets, and these are well formed brackets in the sense we know a similar problem where we check whether number of opening brackets are matching with number of closing brackets, and they should be well formed. I will give you an example. Let us consider this n as 3, and our answer should consist of n opening brackets and n closing brackets. These are well formed, but if you consider this as an example first, and then we have one more opening and closing. Consider this second example where here also there are n opening brackets and n closing brackets. N is 3, but this is not well formed because this bracket selection is invalid. So this is something that we need to keep in mind while writing that solution. We just have to write a function which returns all these strings, all these valid parenthesis strings. We will go through one more example where n is 2, and we will come up with a recursive solution for this problem. Let us consider an example where n is 2. That means we can use n two opening brackets and two closing brackets. Initially, we will start with an empty string, and we can choose either a closing bracket or an opening bracket. So if we choose a closing bracket, that becomes an invalid string and we will not continue there. So here we have two options: either we can choose an opening bracket or we can choose a closing bracket. So there is one here also we can choose an opening bracket or a closing bracket, and whenever we here we have an invalid case because number of opening brackets, that is 3, which exceeds the number n, that is 2. So we will not continue there. If we choose a opening bracket here, it will still be a valid string, and if we choose a closing bracket here, it becomes invalid. So this is the recursive approach where we continue till we get n opening brackets and n closing brackets. So if we choose the closing bracket here, that becomes a string, and here we can see it has two opening brackets and two closing brackets, so that will be a valid answer. So if you continue the recursion without choosing an opening or closing bracket, there will be some strings which becomes invalid, and there will be some strings which satisfy the condition for answer. So we will push all those valid strings to our list, and we will stop the recursion if we find any invalid string. Any invalid string can be determined by considering the number of opening and closing brackets, where if number of opening brackets is greater than the n or number of closing brackets is greater than the n, that becomes an invalid string. Or if we have more number of closing brackets than the number of opening brackets, that also become an invalid string. Here we made a simple mistake where instead of choosing a closing bracket, we have if we choose an opening bracket here, that becomes an invalid string and we stop the recursion. I just wanted to show you all the recursive calls that are going to happen when n is 2. I hope this is helpful to understand the solution. Let us start writing solution for this problem, and we will declare a empty list for storing all the answer strings. We will call valid parenthesis, initialize it to empty string, and then we will call this fill parenthesis function which is going to take our n as an argument, and then this will be our current string, and we will also pass this valid parenthesis list, and finally this valid parenthesis list will be filled with all the valid answers, and we will return valid parenthesis list. Only thing is we have to implement this function. Let me implement that function. We are going to write a function named fill parentheses, and here we are going to get a n, which is number of opening brackets and number of closing brackets, and there will be a current string, and there will be a list which will be used to store all the valid parentheses. So this is our function, and we need to check whether, okay, I think this function needs two more arguments, where we also need to pass number of opening brackets and number of closing brackets. So initially it will be 0 because we will start with an empty string. So number of opening brackets in this empty string will be 0, and number of closing brackets in this empty string will be 0. So at any point, if our open number of opening brackets increases by n more than n, or number of closing brackets is more than n in the current string, or number of closing brackets is greater than number of opening brackets, then we know that our current string is invalid and there is no point in moving forward. So we will just return. So this is our invalid case where we check whether our current string is valid or not. If this is not the case, then we will check for whether we have a valid string which can be an answer. So if number of closing brackets is n and number of opening brackets are n and number of closing brackets are also n in our current string, then we know that we have a valid answer. We will append our current string, and then we will return. So if that is not the case, we have two choices. Either we can choose an opening bracket or we can choose a closing bracket. So this is the case where we choose an opening bracket. Total number of brackets will remain the same since we will choose the opening brackets. Opening brackets count will be incremented by 1, and number of closing brackets will remain the same. And our current string will be, since we are choosing an opening bracket, our current string will be, opening bracket will be added to our current string, and we will pass the valid parenthesis list which will be used for storing all the valid answers. This is one option we have. Otherwise we can choose a closing bracket. In this time opening brackets will remain the same. Since we are choosing a closing bracket, number of closing brackets will be incremented by 1, and our current string will become current string plus a closing bracket since we are choosing a closing bracket. So then the last argument, which is valid parenthesis. So this is the solution. This is the recursive solution that we are using for generating all the possible combination within opening brackets and when closing brackets. Let us see if this solution is working. We will run the solution. So here we have a problem. Let valid parentheses. Hmm. Okay, there is some typo here. Okay, instead of I have written you. Let's see if this works. Okay, okay, we are not getting what we want. So here, after pushing this thing, it is better to reset the string. It is holding on to its old value. Mm, okay, what is the problem here? Okay, if it is not n, both should be n. So here we made a logical mistake here. So see, for a valid string, it is not either one of them is n. Both it should contain number of closing brackets and number of opening brackets. Both should be n. Then only it will become a valid string. So we made a logical mistake here, and let us see if this solution passes. Okay, it is passing first two cases, and let me submit the solution and check whether it passes all the test cases. Yes, this is our recent submission of this problem where we have fixed this logical issue where I have used or instead of and instead of initially I used or instead of and. That is why we were getting invalid strings, but here this solution passes all the test cases. So I hope you like this video. If you are interested in learning more about data structures and algorithms, please subscribe to this channel, and I will be uploading more videos related to dynamic programming and stuff related to algorithms. Thanks for watching this video.